Kirsten, listen to the different agencies deal with how they are now flexible to deal with this these budgets.
Yeah, I mean, this was something I think everybody figured out pretty early, that the administration was coming out and making these claims to try to scare people and try to pin it on the Republicans. And look, it didn't really work at all. I mean, the polls reflect that. So I do think what Jay Carney said is right. In the long term, the sequester, of course, is going to affect people. It's not Obama that's saying it's going to cost 750,000 jobs. It's the CBO who's been saying that. So, you know, in the long run, I think it will affect people. If you talk to the Defense Department, they seem to think that it's going to affect them. There are people that are laid off. These are real things. Unfortunately, by sort of making up things, frankly, and exaggerating, they undermine the real people that will be hurt by this.
What's tough sometimes to listen to, Charles, is when they forget what they said before, or at least it appears that they forgot what they said before.
I think it's a willed amnesia. But I think the real story, I think Ed Henry is being extremely cynical. The real story is that between our first clip of the Secretary saying we're going to have to cut the Border Patrol, and today they discovered in the headquarters of DHS a pot of gold. Had been there the whole time, they didn't know where it was, and all this, it was discovered like last week or something, and they now are able to fund the border security up to the limit. Look, it's very obvious what happened here. In the experience in the past, when there have been shutdowns or threats of shutdowns, Republicans took the blame. That was in the 90s with the government shutdown and with the debt ceiling. If anything bad happened, even if it was unrelated, let's say the reduction in our credit rating, the Republicans got the blame. Obama assumed it would happen with the sequester, so he went after all the stuff that would be really appalling, like denying Iowa tots a visit in the White House and opening the border. And it turned out that everybody says, look, they're spending $3.5 trillion a year, and you can't have a tour of the White House, and you have to end up laying off the border security people. It's absurd. So the blame was headed the administration's way, and thus the pots of gold all of a sudden have been discovered in every agency in government. It's an Easter miracle.
Today, Steve, Jay Carney said other things can be done, changes. The furloughs can be changed. Meanwhile, you know, just weeks ago, there was no flexibility. Right. None.
This is the story. I mean, I think this is now the story of the sequester, is you had the administration complaining that they didn't have flexibility, then when they were offered flexibility, rejecting that flexibility. And now, as Charles says, you're finding within all of these agencies and elsewhere, I mean, further out down the line, people receiving federal funding are finding ways to get around the cuts so that you don't see the catastrophic consequences that the administration warned about. There was a fascinating piece in the Wall Street Journal yesterday where a reporter went and talked to a Central Maryland head of the Central Maryland YMCA and asked about how you're going to deal with the loss of $250,000, 5% of the budget. And this person said, well, we're not going to not fill unoccupied positions. We're going to ask people to do a little more work. We're going to seek private donations. And in the end, he said, the sky's not going to fall. So the administration is stepping on its own story. I mean, you've got people who are getting this federal money. Jay Carney said today, go ask somebody who's affected with Head Start. Well, that's precisely what happened yesterday, and they're not supporting his claims.
We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. That's it for the panel, but stay tuned for a tough day at the anchor desk.